everyone. It's Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, which means that it is the baking hour. And today I am going to focus on talking about some of the best utensils that I think you should have in your home kitchen that maybe you don't have. So my name is Jen Barney, and I have been baking professionally for 10 years. I'm this year's Food Network's Holiday Baking Champion, and I have this wealth of knowledge on all things baking. I'm a little bit obsessed about it, and I really love tonight to share with you some of the baking tools that you should have in your kitchen at home that you probably don't have, but if you feel like you should pick them up the next time you're shopping and slowly build up your kitchen with tools that will help you get gourmet products. So once again, my name is Jen Barney, and let's talk about this. So, well, first, I want to say I've had a really cool week this week. We've gone through we met so many fantastic people through this whole process since the whole Food Network show has aired. And this week we did Wedding World in La Crosse, and I've met hundreds of brides, hundreds of just really cool people that were super excited for me. I got a lot of hugs, and we took a lot of photographs with lots of people. That was one of the best parts about my week this past week. Also, I want to do a quick shout out because we've gotten some really cool, awesome gifts from people from the bakery, or to the bakery. And various people, some people I don't even know. This one's from the Bressler family, but how sweet is that? Look at these cool little ornaments. So we've got a cake. We have a 6 geese a-laying ornament. How sweet is that? And we also have an amazing little red barn ornament. I just feel super lucky and very fortunate that people care enough to take time out of their day to send me some of this fantastic and very thoughtful gifts. So thank you so much. The whole point of this next half hour is just me talking about some of my favorite kitchen utensils that you should have in your kitchen. And the first one that I would love to talk to you about is a scale. Now, scales come in all shapes and forms. You should get a scale that goes down to an ounce or a gram. So in the bakery, we use this product. It is a Taylor scale, and I feel like most restaurants, they use this one. I've seen this is kind of the standard in the restaurant industry. And I feel like that scale probably retails for around $50 brand new. But you don't have to spend $50. You could go to any Walmart store or on Amazon.com and probably get a scale that's around the $10 mark. That would do you just well. You're looking for a scale that goes down to the grams and down to the ounces. Now, here's the thing. There's a couple reasons why you should be measuring in ounces and grams. And when you start let's just say you have your 10 favorite baking recipes that you use all the time in your home. You should really think about converting them into grams and ounces. And it's easy to do. So you have your cup of flour that you normally would have, and all you have to do is measure it to see what that actual weight is. And then just start slowly converting your recipes to grams and ounces. It may seem a little bit like overkill, but let me tell you, there's a huge difference in when you're making things repetitively. If you're going down to in grams or an ounce, your success. How do I say this? Like, your chances of success just jump through the roof if it's super consistent across the board. Because let's say you put, especially if it's a small recipe that you're making for your home, the difference between a tablespoon or a teaspoon, that's a big deal, especially when you're talking about something like baking soda. And so anybody can come in easily and mess up a teaspoon to a tablespoon ratio. But if you're on a scale, you know exactly what the gram ounce is on that versus visually what a heaping teaspoon is versus like a level teaspoon. Does that make sense? Also, what's really cool about when you start working with grams and ounces is it opens up this whole world of recipes that are available to you from places like Europe or Asia, because it's a universal measuring unit. And so I can look at recipes online that are from the UK, and for the most part, they do them in grams. And I know exactly how to use that recipe at home because I couldn't have access to that recipe then if I didn't have a scale at my house. I mean, does that make sense? So, so the first reason you should grab a scale is it opens up a huge, endless possibilities for recipes that you're researching on the internet, because in other parts of the world, they use grams and ounces. And the other reason is just purely for consistency, and it really helps just nip any mistakes that you can make. It nips it in the butt. So if you like these tips that I'm giving you, please feel free to give me some happy faces across here. And if you have any other tips that you want to share, please in these boxes or in the comment box, please let's start talking about your advice or tools that you found that really get the job done in your home. So the next tip or tool that I would love to share with you is a basic scoop. Man, I mean, so most people have an ice cream scoop at their house, but what you should be doing is using this to portion cupcakes, cookies, anything that you have that you're baking multiples in the oven. Because when you bake in an oven, let's just say you're making cupcakes. If you have different amounts in every cupcake pan, when you put it into the oven, they're all going to bake at different times, because something that, has like a quarter of an ounce more in a cupcake liner, that's going to take an extra 3 minutes to cook. And then at that point, you're overcooking the ones that are all uniform, and then you're undercooking the one that has too much batter in it. And the same is true with cookies, especially with cookies, because cookies, man, like when you're baking cookies, the difference between the perfectly baked cookie and an overly done cookie could be 1 minute, right? So you really want to make sure that you're pulling the cookies at the exact same time and they're all uniform. And if they are all the same amount, which a scoop will give you, that is one of the best tips that I can give you. So invest in a scoop, and invest in a couple sizes of scoops. So I think for the most part, if you went to Walmart, you can get a scoop that is 1 ounce. This one happens to be 2.4 ounces. And then you can get a 3 ounce scoop as well. And I think they all have a place in your kitchen. So go buy yourselves a couple of scoops, please. Thank you for the fantastic comments, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thank you for listening to me talk about these tips that I have. And I invite you to leave a comment. One question I have is, I have all these different names coming up. Where's everybody from? Because let's just see how far the reach is here. So please, in the comment box, let me know where you're writing in from or where you're viewing from. I really appreciate that. The next tip I have is the beauty of the zester. So you can buy a Microplane Zester, of all places, in a hardware store. Who would have thought, right? And I'm pretty sure, for the most part, Amazon's going to have something like this. Walmart, I think at this point, has something like this. Now, this one is a fantastic microplane because it has a couple different options. There's a very thin option, and there's also more of a thicker grater on this end. But what makes this so cool, you guys, is that I know I think I probably talked about zesting in every single episode, and it's one of my favorite things to do as a pastry chef, because it makes things taste so gourmet that and it's such a simple thing to do, and all you need is a microplane in your toolbox. I don't think most people wouldn't think to grab one of these, but you really should. I wanted to do a really quick demo on how you can incorporate zesting in your home, because I feel like sometimes I could say, buy a microplane, and then you'd never know how to use it, right? Depends on what you're doing. I guess I don't really have any preference on what grate I'm using, the very thin or the little bit thicker. So let me show you really quick how to do this. So I'm going to get up off my seat here, and I'm going to plug in my food processor. So a food processor is another great tool that you should have at home. At the bakery, we use food processors multiple times a day. So if you are wanting to zest something that has, here, let me sit down. Let me talk a little bit longer about the zesting before I actually do it. So if you want to infuse, let's just say you're making a cranberry walnut cookie and you want to give it a little bit of pizzazz. All you have to do is zest an orange into it, because an orange, cranberry, walnuts, oatmeal, those are all flavors that go really well together. If I'm making a cake, and then I want to brighten it up a little bit, I will add some lemon zest to it. If I am making a lemon poppy seed muffin and I really want to pop that lemon flavor, I'll zest the outside of that lemon before I cut into it to get the juice. And in the bakery, any citrus fruits, we always zest the outside before we cut into the middle of it. We would never just waste the zest, because that's like liquid gold in the bakery. So to use this zester, let's pretend that we're making a cake or a cookie, because this could be for either one of those. One of the best ways I know how to infuse that zest is to infuse it into the sugar amount. So let's say you have 1 cup of sugar, and I have that scaled out for you right here. And I have my food processor, so my whole idea here is that I'm going to be zesting in 1 orange into 1 cup of sugar. So in a recipe, if you do not have a food processor at home, you could just zest this amount right into the recipe. But I really feel like when you infuse it into the sugar, so all those sugar granules are going to pick up this orange flavor, and then it just disperses so much more into the recipe. So if you can see here, this is what this looks like as I zest. And that's all that flavor, you guys, and then I just put it right into the microplane, or the food processor. The food processor is a great additional step, but like I said before, if you don't have a food processor at home, don't let that stop you from zesting. This is a huge orange. You guys should have picked a smaller fruit. We'll move to the bigger. The bigger grade on the zester, so it'll move a little bit faster. When you zest a citrus fruit, it's really important to go into that pith. So as I'm zesting this, where's that camera at? As I'm zesting this, I do not want to go into that white part. I'm just taking off that little bit of the outside of the zest. We just want that pretty color. So into my food processor, I have 1 cup of sugar, the zest of 1 citrus fruit, and I'm going to turn on this microplane, and I'm going to let this process for maybe about 30 seconds. And the whole point of this is that all those sugar granules are picking up that orange flavor. So this is, I would say, probably a building block tip, because you can use this technique in any recipe that calls for sugar. So this would be fantastic with cookies, with shortbread, with muffins. I mean, can you see that? Probably not, huh? Because it's getting blown out. But this sugar now smells fantastic. The sugar is actually orange in color. And this is a great building block tip for any recipe that calls for sugar that you want to give a little bit of a gourmet touch to. So this could be a cookie, a muffin, a scone. It could even be frosting that you have whole sugar that you're baking or that you're making it with. I know for our meringue recipe that we use in our bakery to make buttercream with, I can actually cook. So I can take this orange sugar and I can put it over a water bath with the sugar with some egg whites and cook it. And it'll actually make a meringue that is scented with orange. So endless possibilities here. I think I'm not going to talk about it too much more because I don't want to beat it with a dead horse. But I feel like this is the one thing that you could be doing that is going to turn your basic recipes into something fantastic, and you should be doing it at your house. Buy a zester. So I'm going to also, while I have the food processor out and I'm talking about it, one of my favorite things to use for the food processor, if you ever make cheesecake, it would be to make the cheesecake in the food processor, because when you, one of the things about making cheesecake is that you do not want to incorporate too much air into the batter, because air is bad, because air will make your cheesecake raise a lot, and then it'll deflate and it'll kind of get crackly on the top. So a food processor allows that cream cheese and egg mixture to mix without incorporating air. And it's one of the best tools I found to make a really good cheesecake. So I would invest in a food processor. And you know what? I've been lucky enough over the years to find food processors at garage sales of all places. So if you're ever, keep an eye out for garage sales and food processors, because people, I think, buy them and they don't understand how to use them. One other thing with food processors is when you buy one, get one that's just simple and good. You don't need one that has all the fancy attachments to it, because then you're just holding on to all these attachments. I use the grater on our food processor attachment to grate carrots. So you just put the carrots down the chute and then it'll grate it for you. But I've never used any other tool in the bakery for the food processor with all those fancy attachments. So don't feel like you need to buy the most expensive one either, because sometimes you get all those parts and it just takes up space in your counter and you never use it. All right. Another tip I have for you is a product called the Soap Pat, and people maybe have heard me talk about this before. I feel like Soap Pat, it's a very common way that bakers call it, but I feel like Soap Pat's actually a named brand, and it's a French company. But it's any type of silicone baking mat, basically, is what we're talking about here. I have found them as cheap as, for this size, is a quarter sheet size. I have found this as cheap as $7 at Aldi's, and whenever I find it at Aldi's, I always stock up and I'll buy them, because it's a great gift for people for the holidays. Actually, I think if you look really hard in the bakery, you'll find ones that are still in the rolls, because I stockpile when I buy them. But what's so great about these is, everybody knows what parchment paper is, right? So everybody should be using parchment paper, but parchment paper, you know what? Sometimes you just run out and you don't buy it, and then you're looking to cook cookies and you don't know what to do. So what do? You go to your Soap Pat, because this is like the eternal parchment piece of parchment paper, because you can keep washing it, you can keep reusing it. And what do you think? So a roll of parchment is what, like $3? And this you can get for as low as $7, so it'll last a lifetime. So I feel like also especially when you bake things like cookies or scones, I really like how the browning effect that happens on the bottom versus it just being on a flat pan. So yeah, Soap Pats are the way of the future, and you should have one in your home. What's also really cool about Soap Pats is if you ever have the opportunity to buy a large one, you can get them in a full sheet size. You can cut them down to fit any pan size. So I could take this Soap Pat and I could take a scissors to it and cut into it, and it would never lose its shape, or like it would never fray or anything. And I actually, for the first time this year, I saw that they're selling them now in round forms. So you could put them in a 6-inch pan, an 8-inch pan. So for the bakery, that's actually something that I should buy eventually, make that investment, because we go through so much parchment paper every day because we're constantly cutting circles. But how fantastic to have an option where you're not utilizing all of that paper. All right. Can you add zest to powdered sugar? We have a question from Kim. You know what, Kim? Yes, you can, but you know what? Zest has a liquid content to it, and anytime you use powdered sugar, it tends to, you add any type of liquid content of powdered sugar, it's going to turn it into a paste. So you're going to lose the fluffiness of the powdered sugar if you add the zest, but if you're adding it like let's say you were adding, if you're making buttercream at home that you were using powdered sugar in, you could totally zest in that, because if you turn it into a paste, because that's what's going to happen if you zest into powdered sugar, that paste can be broken up into your buttercream, and nobody would ever noticed that it was in a paste form ahead of time. So I would say absolutely, but if you need the powdered sugar to stay light and fluffy for a recipe, zesting into that particular type of product would not be advisable. Donna says she loves her Cuisinart food processor. So you see, I'm not the only one. She uses it every day. So food processors have a huge range of you can do anything in a food, well, not anything, but you can do most things in a food processor, especially for a lot of savory applications for dinner. It's a great way to whip a bunch of things in one. To make salsa, it takes like 2 seconds in a food processor. All right, so we've talked about the zester, we've talked about the soap pat, we've talked about portioning, we've talked about a scale, and I've talked about food processors for probably way too long. Those are really the 5 things that I wanted to share with you, 5 little tips. Does anybody have any comments that they'd like to share on any tips that they use at home? So this would be a tip that anybody could have in the comment box that they can share with us on what they're using to make their product fantastic, or at least appear fantastic. Because here's the deal, we're always busy, right? So if you can just do 1 or 2 quick little things to make something appear gourmet, or that you spent a ton of time on it, do it, man. Make it look good. Martha Stewart it up when you can. I'm looking through the comments. Gail says she's never zested anything. Well, thank you, Gail, for being honest. I never zested anything either until I came into this profession. I wanted to tell you really quickly what I'm doing this week. I've got a really fantastic week coming up. The first is that we're going to be in Rochester this Sunday at the Unveiled Wedding Show. And I've never had an order delivered to Rochester before. And it's only an hour to an hour and a half away from the bakery. So I'm really trying to tap into that market. And for the first time, we're going to be in Rochester showing off our cakes and having samples. So we're really excited about that and the possibility of expanding Meringue Bakery. So cool. We're also really thinking really hard about our Valentine's Day menu. So right now you can go online and you can order off our Valentine's Day menu. In a couple weeks here, we're going to be making our huge batch of truffles. So on Valentine's Day, we're selling freshly made truffles that are in heart-shaped boxes, and I'm really excited about it. So we're always thinking about different ways that we can make it. So I know for the truffles this year, I figured out that there's going to be a champagne truffle, a hazelnut truffle, caramel truffle, and then what's the other one now? Hazelnut, caramel, champagne. Well, maybe it's only 3 flavors. There's a 4th in there. Maybe like a strawberry something, raspberry. It's kind of a berry flavor, pink flavor, because it's Valentine's Day. You know what? So right now it's 7:23, and I've talked about my 5 tips. So I'm going to put this up in our blog post on our website, and that'll hit in a couple of days. So you can see this in text form as well if you have any questions later on. But I feel like I don't see any more questions coming in. But I really sincerely hope that all of you can take these tips home with you to make your baking just that much better, just a little bit better, just to make it a little bit prettier, a little bit more gourmet. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jen Barney. I am a professional baking fool and Food Network's holiday baking champion. And thank you so much for listening to me talk tonight. And I'll see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, everybody. Thank you so much. So we just got a new computer, and I don't know if I know how to click the finish button. Brian might have to help me. I give up.